Look, I have something I want to share with you all. Over the past few years, I have voiced a lot of Big Brother opinions, and not all of them are well received. I get it, we're bound to have differences, and to be honest, I'm glad we don't see eye to eye on everything. It gives us a reason for discourse, and I enjoy the constructive discussion that comes from it. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up in the first place is because I'm about to hit you with another opinion that most of you might not agree with. I actually don't mind night one evictions. In fact, I sometimes kinda like them. I know, how cruel of me. But in all seriousness, I really do think that night one evictions can kick off a season of Big Brother in an intense and captivating manner when done correctly. However, more often than not, Big Brother doesn't do it right. Throughout Big Brother history, there have been 4 instances of night one evictions, and to say that it's a heated topic of discussion in the community is an understatement. Most people hate these immediate evictions due to the fact that it effectively robs one player the opportunity of actually playing the game. So let's talk about it. This is the complete history of night one evictions in Big Brother.
Although there are 12 of you, there are only 11 keys to hand out. One of you will be leaving the house tonight.
The first time that Big Brother introduced the night one eviction was in Big Brother 14, and it also happens to be the most famous example. 12 unsuspecting new house guests walked into the Big Brother 14 house and were eventually followed by 4 returning legends of the game. These 4 legends, who were Dan Giesling, Brittany Haynes, Janelle Pierzina, and Mike Boogie, were not coming into the game as players, but rather as coaches, and they were each tasked with drafting a team of 3 house guests through a schoolyard pick. After the teams were selected, a competition was set up that the house guests would immediately compete in. It was announced that the winning team would have the power of HOH for the week, but then Julie dropped a bomb by revealing that whichever team finished in last place would lose one of their players that night. The coach of the losing team would be given the unfortunate job of casting the sole vote to evict one of their players by night's end, and it made things super tense. This was completely unprecedented, and it caught everyone off guard. Even though every team wanted to win the competition, it was clear that the most important thing was just not getting last place. The competition in question was a little bit of an obstacle course where each player would have to grab a giant teddy bear and make it back to their starting platform without falling off. This proved to be an extremely physical competition, and we saw many players struggle mightily to get through the course. In the end, we saw Dan's team come in last place, meaning that he would have to evict one of the 3 women on his team by the end of the night. Ultimately, he narrowed down his choice between Danielle and Jodi, but sensing that Danielle worked better with his top draft choice, Kara, he chose to evict Jodi, where she infamously became the first ever house guest to be evicted on night 1. If you ask me, this night one eviction was pretty poorly designed. Since we just saw the coaches draft the players, it was clear that the evicted house guest would likely just be whoever was drafted last on each team. Adding to that, since the eviction would be taking place just a couple of hours after the draft, it gave that last drafted player so little time to try and convince their coach to keep them in the game, making this an uphill battle for those that were picked last. Also, it seemed that physicality was the main factor when it came to draft order, so when you combine that with the fact that the competition was indeed a very physical comp, it seemed that this night one eviction was manufactured to get a quote-unquote weak player out of the game instantly. As for Jodi, my goodness did she draw the short straw. Even though this competition wasn't designed for her, she clearly gave it her all and put everything she had out there to try and win it for her team. But the cards were stacked against her from the very beginning. She was the last player to be drafted out of everyone, and it seemed like the writing was on the wall the minute her team lost the competition. Justice for Jodi, please. It's been 10 years. Let's give her that second chance.
The coach of the last place team has the dreaded task of sending one of his or her players home tonight.
I see we're in last place, but I'm thinking I have long arms, I have long legs. I'll be able to do this. I'll just be able to reach across. Oh, my face.
Jodi's out there busting her ass. She's trying her heart out, and she's giving it her all.
Good job. Hey. Hey, sir. Hey, good job. Proud of you guys, all right?
My team finished last, so at this point, I'm gonna have to cut one of my players loose, and which as a coach, I don't take very lightly.
I deserve to be here. I worked my butt off, I smacked myself in the face, I got a fat lip, both of my lips hurt, my teeth hurt. I did the best that I could do, and that's all you can really ask for anybody.
I know every one of you did your best. But unfortunately, Jodi, I'm sorry, I have to evict you.
Well, thanks, guys. It was fun.
After Big Brother 14, it took 4 more years before we saw another Night 1 eviction take place. Well, kind of. Technically, this was a Night 2 eviction. However, I'm still counting it in this video because the premise is still largely the same, except there were just more gears involved with this eviction, which is why it took 2 days to get through. It was in Big Brother 18, and very similarly to Big Brother 14, we saw 12 new house guests joined by 4 returning players to start the season off. Just like in Big Brother 14, we saw the 4 veterans, who were Nicole Frangel, James Hewling, Frank Jodi, and Davon Rogers, become team captains, and another team draft took place. After the 4 teams were established, it was announced that not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 competitions would take place over the upcoming day and a half. All 4 teams would compete in the first competition. However, the winning team would earn their safety and wouldn't need to compete in the other comps. The 3 losing teams would then compete in the second competition, and similar to the first one, the winning team would earn their safety and wouldn't need to compete in the other competitions. The 2 losing teams would face off in a head-to-head competition, and the winning team would, you guessed it, earn their safety, forcing the last remaining team to face off in the last competition. In this final comp, the 4 players on the team would all compete against one another, and the player that came in last place would be instantly evicted from the house just like that. No vote, no formal goodbye, nothing. You win, you're in, but if you lose, you're gone. This was called Hit the Road, and it was the first time in Big Brother history that a player would be evicted solely through losing a competition, which was absolutely wild and raised the stakes tremendously. The first comp was an endurance competition, which James's team won. Then the second comp was a stacking balance challenge, which Frank's team won. And then the third comp was a 3D puzzle, which Davon's team won. This left Nicole's team as the 4th and final team, forcing them into the showdown round. This 4th competition was played between Nicole, Corey, Tiffany, and Glenn, and whoever came in last place would be instantly evicted. This challenge was sort of a balancing comp where the players had to grab coconuts and spell out the word SOS without any coconuts falling out, and it was a nail-biter. Nicole finished first, and Tiffany followed soon after, leaving just Corey and Glenn fighting for the last spot. In a legitimate photo finish, nobody knew who won, but it was then revealed that Glenn had lost some coconuts when he pulled the flag, meaning that Corey just beat him out, resulting in Glenn getting last place and being instantly evicted. As far as how I feel about this Night 1 eviction, I'm a bit mixed. I don't really love the idea that the first evicted house guest was determined solely by losing a competition instead of a vote. However, the fact that there were 4 comps means that each player had 4 opportunities to save themselves. So I think that balances it in a way and makes it so that they really don't have anybody to blame but themselves. As for Glenn though, it's tough to be in that position. Glenn unfortunately was the token older house guest of the season, and seeing as to how everyone else was pretty physically fit, the cards were always going to be stacked against him in these physical comps. Also, this marks the 2nd time in a row that the player who was drafted last ended up being the Night 1 boot. I know the sample size is small, but I definitely feel like that's worth the mention.
The Freakazoids didn't work as a team, and now, what's gonna happen? One of us is going home.
Corey, Glenn, Nicole, and Tiffany. It's time to battle against each other for safety. The house guest that loses this competition will be immediately evicted from the Big Brother house.
Yes!
Got it! So I get my last coconut down, and I have to grab this flag, and it's like slow motion. It's like I'm in the Matrix.
Glenn, slow down.
Everyone starts screaming for Glenn to pull his flag, and I know that I gotta get going.
Slow, reach for it.
Corey and Glenn, this was a photo finish between the 2 of you. The first house guest to pull their flag with all their coconuts in place was Corey. Sorry, Glenn. You finished last, which means you are the first person evicted from the Big Brother house.
I'm crushed. It's killing me. I have so many emotions going on. I don't know what to do. I'll be watching, guys.
Love you, Big Daddy.
Freakazoids, come on.
Now, the Big Brother team must have really loved what they got from Big Brother 18's Night 1 eviction because they wasted no time at all and gave us yet another Night 1 eviction for Big Brother 19, but the format was a lot different this time. No more were the teams or drafts. This time it was all individual. 16 new house guests walked into the Big Brother house eager to start the summer-long adventure, but before they could get comfortable, they were offered a temptation of $25,000. However, if just one of these 16 house guests accepted the temptation, then a twist would be unleashed into the house. Kevin ended up being the first house guest to accept it, and just like that, the entire game was about to change. Shortly after the temptation was accepted, the house guests were shocked to see Big Brother 18 runner-up Paul walk through the front door. It was then announced that Paul wasn't just going to be playing the game again, but Paul was actually taking the place of one of the 16 new house guests. This was called the Big Brother Swap, and it kicked off the events of the Night 1 eviction, which would take place over 3 rounds. The first round was focused on the social game. Paul was given 8 friendship bracelets and was tasked with giving them out to 8 of the new players. Any player with a friendship bracelet at the end of the night would be safe, meaning that the 16 new house guests had to try and convince Paul into giving them a friendship bracelet. Each house guest was given time with Paul to pitch their case, and soon after, Paul had made their decision and handed out the 8 bracelets. The 8 players who didn't receive safety moved on to the second round, which was an endurance competition. The winner would naturally earn their safety, but the losers also had something to work towards. In the yard, there were 7 apples. 4 of these apples contained safety, while 3 of them were poisoned. Throughout the competition, the players would receive clues to the contents of each apple, and when a house guest dropped from the comp, they would choose an apple. If their apple contained a safe chip, then they'd be safe for the night, but if they chose a poisoned apple, then they would still be in danger. Cody ended up winning the competition, and the 3 players that had the misfortune of choosing a poisoned apple were Jillian, Christmas, and Cameron. These 3 players then moved on to the final round, where they were given a choice. They could choose to play in another competition where the loser would be instantly evicted, or they could choose to have a traditional vote in eviction where the 3 of them would become nominees and the house would vote one of them off. Cameron voted for a competition, but Jillian and Christmas outnumbered him and voted for a traditional vote off, leaving the 3 of them on the block. They were each given time to campaign, but before they knew it, it was eviction time, and by a wild 8-3-2 vote, Cameron was evicted from the Big Brother 19 house after just 11 hours. As far as Night 1 evictions go, I actually really like this one. Not only did I find it interesting to watch, but I also think it's by far the most fair one so far. Each house guest had a multitude of ways to earn their safety. They were given the chance to utilize their social game and deal-making skills to try and earn a friendship bracelet from Paul. If that didn't work, they had the opportunity to earn their safety through a physical comp with a risk versus reward element to it. And if you still hadn't succeeded yet, you still had a standard eviction vote to try and survive. The house guests were given ample opportunities to utilize their skill sets in order to survive the night, and I love that a physical comp wasn't the deciding factor on who went home. As for Cameron, it was definitely sad to see him go. You could tell how bad he wanted to be there, doing whatever he could to try and earn the votes to stay. However, it seemed that his archetype proved to be too threatening to the other house guests, which led to his vote off on night 1. However, as I've been saying, he was given a diverse array of opportunities to survive, so as far as first boots go, I feel like Cameron's was the most fair, and he was at the very least given a traditional vote off as opposed to some wonky other option.
So after talking to Paul, I thought that it went really well. He seemed really receptive. I just want that friendship bracelet. I could be your victor. I could be loyal to you. Give me the bracelet.
Cheese sandwich.
Elena. Thank you.
Calm down. You'll be fine.
I'm devastated. This is the worst case scenario, but I'm just looking forward to going outside, fighting for my life, and staying in this game.
Karen is down. Poison apple for Christmas. Hi, Cameron.
What's up, Julie?
All right, what would you like to do?
I want
vote?
I want a competition. I don't trust any of these fools.
By a vote of 2-1, tonight's eviction will take place by an eviction vote.
Christmas, the bodybuilder, votes for a house vote? What's going on? I'm not gonna be the first hamster in this cage to go home. No way. This is my dream to be here, and I feel like it's slipping out of my grasp. And that's kind of terrible.
By a vote of 8-3, Cameron, you are evicted from the Big Brother house.
Still the best house I've seen all day.
You threw me in a house filled with crazy people, I swear.
Big Brother decided to take one season off of Night 1 evictions before bringing it back one final time in Big Brother 21. On night 1 of BB21, shortly after the 16 new players had introduced themselves, Jodi revealed the first twist. The theme of Big Brother 21 was summer camp, so to go along with the theme, the houseguests were tasked with electing a camp director. Nobody knew what the camp director could do and were only told that they would be given unprecedented power. While many of the houseguests wanted nothing to do with this, Cliff, David, Jessica, and Jackson all stepped up to the plate and campaigned to become the camp director. Jackson admittedly did a really good job of campaigning by saying that he would do whatever he could to protect any player that voted for him, and in the end, he secured 10 of the 16 votes, which made him the camp director. The houseguests were then informed that Jackson was now tasked with the responsibility of banishing 4 of the other houseguests and forcing them to compete in a competition for their Big Brother life, as the loser of this comp would be instantly evicted. Jackson's approach to choosing the 4 other houseguests was simple. He recognized that the other 3 players who campaigned to become camp director were likely going to be threats in the game due to the fact that they weren't afraid to volunteer themselves for the unknown power. So his first 3 choices of houseguests to banish were Cliff, Jessica, and David. And then, for the last player, he chose Kemi because she didn't make much of an effort to talk to him. So these 4 banished players were now forced to compete in a competition, and it was a doozy. The players were placed in a pitch black room, and their task was simple: find your way out. The first 3 players to escape the darkness would earn their safety, but the player who failed to find their way out of the room would be instantly evicted. Cliff found the exit first, Kemi found the exit second, and Jessica found the exit third, leaving David as the last remaining player in the dark room and making him the first evicted houseguest of the season. As far as the format for this night 1 eviction, I'm still unsure about how I feel. I'm not a fan of a competition being the sole determiner on who gets evicted. However, each houseguest did have the opportunity to pitch their case to Jackson to try and avoid seeing the competition, and everyone did have a fair shot at becoming the camp director in the first place, so there were plenty of ways to use your social game to avoid going into the competition in the first place. Speaking of the comp, by having it be totally blind, it does equalize the playing field, so no player is going to have any innate advantages in it, which is something that I sort of like, but at the same time, by making it such an equal playing field in this regard, it almost becomes a crapshoot challenge. And when you look at this in that scope, then it means that the evicted houseguest was chosen almost at random, which is not something I'm a fan of. Watching David become the first evicted houseguest was really tough because he really excited me in this preseason interviews. He took a risk going for the camp director power, but unfortunately, the risk didn't pay off. I don't blame him for going for the power. I probably would have gone for it too. And I think David largely just got unlucky that Jackson's criteria on who to banish was to pick the players that also tried to become camp director. I also think that David got unlucky that the comp chosen was the one that completely equalized the playing field. But at the end of the day, David technically was given 3 opportunities at safety, and he just had the misfortune of losing each one.
Congratulations, Jackson. With 10 votes, you are the first ever camp director. As the director, you must choose to banish 4 house guests. These 4 will then go head-to-head in a battle for their Big Brother lives.
I'd be like, listen, I gotta point out the people who stuck their necks out to go against me.
Jessica. Cliff.
I feel like a lot of people are going up to Jackson and asking him not to put them up, but I just don't feel the need to do that because until I figure you out, I'm not scratching your back because my back hasn't been scratched either.
So I decided to banish Kemi, plain and simple, because she didn't really make much of an effort to talk to me. Everyone else did. I don't have much to go on besides a first impression, and your first impression wasn't all that sweet.
Hello, house guests.
Howdy, howdy.
In order to return to the game, you must find your way back to Camp BB. This will be far from easy because you are in total darkness.
Old Cliff Hog, too bright to be left in the dark.
David.
Yeah.
You can stop searching. The other 3 have found their way back to camp, which means you have lost this competition.
All right.
And are out of the Big Brother house.
Okay. The reason I wanted to win, the reason I wanted to compete, I want to be the first black person to win Big Brother. I wanted to represent Afro-American culture in a different light.
As of now, these 4 instances are the only night 1 evictions that we've had in the US version, but if I had to guess, I don't think we've seen the last of them. Admittedly, starting a Big Brother season with a night 1 eviction is a way to get the chaos ensuing right from the jump, and I get why Big Brother does it. There's no time to play nice when you're forced to make enemies within the first few hours. However, I don't think it's always executed in the best way. Out of the 4 night 1 evictions we've seen, I'm only a fan of Big Brother 19's, and that's because it felt genuinely fair all the way through, and it ended with a standard eviction vote, so although it definitely sucked for Cameron, he was given more than enough opportunities to save himself, and when he failed to do so, he was given a proper vote to determine his fate. Big Brother 19 is the outlier though, and I'm not a big fan of the other 3. They just felt unfair and out of place to me, like they didn't really feel like Big Brother, but rather some carnival game appetizer that resulted in someone's early demise, and in those instances, I would so much rather have just had a normal week 1. And that brings me to my final point. It can be heart-wrenching to watch these happen. The incoming Big Brother house guests know what they're signing up for, but it does seem awfully cruel to go through the entire casting process, finally see your dream come true when you get that key, only for it to all come crashing down because you lost a competition that sent you home just hours after you walked into the house. But in a weird way, that's kind of the reason that I like these. I want to feel emotion while watching Big Brother, and night 1 evictions certainly get that from me. I hurt for the players that walk out of the house on night 1, but it's that same hurt that draws me in and keeps me watching this show year after year. So although I don't want a night 1 eviction every year, I wouldn't mind seeing it once every 6 to 7 years. Just don't overdo it and make it fair.
I really thought I was gonna be frustrated and be angry, but when they showed me the love that they showed me, it was really a special moment. What can you do? It's me being me. I gave it my all, but I'm so happy to be part of Big Brother this summer.
And there we go. I talked about this way longer than I anticipated, but sometimes I get so into a topic that I get carried away. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I of course need to give that extra special shout out to all of my YouTube members who I have the utmost faith would survive any night 1 eviction thrown their way. And, as always, here's a clip for you on your way out.
Are you all ready for your first temptation?
And I'm tempted by ladies, I'm tempted by money, I'm tempted by everything. Tempt me, Julie.
Josh seems a little over the top. I'm probably not on his level. I'm a little bit more reserved, but I think that guy's gonna lose his mind throughout the season. It'll be fun to watch.
Cody's cute. Oh God. But don't worry, Daddy. I'm gonna try and be a good girl.